Whoa!
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't...
But that was a push for liturgy.
Right. We've tried to pull it away from doing it weekly here, periodically, and people just do not like it. They want to see communion every week.
Now it's the practice, right?
Yeah, now it's the practice. And I can see it's that one point in the service, right, where you're on, right? You could sit sort of objective the whole service and zone out and think about your shopping list, but you know, it's a moment in which communion allows you a full participation at one point. And so in that way, it's probably a healthy thing. Russ, what
we heard in the worship board a couple of years ago, a survey in Lutheran magazine. What's the #1 reason that Lutherans come to church?
Yeah.
And it's not the sermon, it's not to see their friends, not the coffee, it's not the music, it's communion.
Really?
So, you know, that the worship board was talking about that, this was about 5 or 6 years ago. You know, should it be every Sunday? And that kind of clinched it.
Right.
You know, that people really want that.
Wow. Now, in this room, I can't, well, I'm not going to assume, but I don't get up on a Sunday morning thinking, I really want communion today. You know, I could be unique, but I don't know why you guys come to church, but for me, it's not for communion, really.
I find for me that, you know, a lot of the service is sort of building myself up or getting built up.
Right.
And what the communion on Sundays does is it awakens me to the fact that this is more than what I'm getting out of it. This is the family, this is the body.
Yeah.
So I get the broader picture, I guess.
Right, so that part is important to you. Emily?
Well, I mean, I've had to read a lot of Luther as of late, like I'm to Good Summary, but one of the things he says about communion is that it's sort of almost sort of like more intimate and personal preaching of the gospel after the sermon. And so, you know, the preacher does sort of this general preaching of the gospel, and then when communion happens, it becomes much more, this is for you.
Yeah. So it brings the whole holy experience down into an engagement with it. It's your hands.
Yeah.
That's I mean, there's I think a lot of good reason to practice it weekly. And I think maybe if I wasn't so busy serving it, I could probably get my head around what's it like to participate in that ritual more fully. But I find there's more rituals in my life that allow me those thin places than communion is for me. So for me, the pull would be more, I want more thin places in my life, and what do those look like, rather than communion for me personally being that thin place. But for other people, I think like what you're describing, Bud, and what you're describing, Emily, they can function as a thin place in which you want to have that as a practice that was more frequent. Right. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that we, for many, many years, had communion, not until they were of the age of reason,
right,
had to do with Paul's 1 Corinthians thing. He who eats and drinks this body and blood without discerning the body, and so we wanted to make sure they understood.
Right.
They had the capacity to understand this is the body of Christ.
Right.
That was the way it was interpreted. But that's not, I don't really think that's what Paul had in mind. I think he said the body, which meant the believers.
Yeah, exactly.
He who
not
eats
the bread
without discerning the body, without feeling the connection, as you're saying here, to one body, eats and drinks judgment unto himself.
Yeah. Because you're participating in this collective whole.
Yeah.
That's the body we're talking about. We're not talking about a piece of bread. I mean, the bread is the beauty of last night's wine and tapas. Was that last night?
Yeah.
It was. It seems like a lifetime ago. Weird. I should have never done that side thing, because now I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, that from a Jungian perspective, one of the things that caught me off guard was that Jung would suggest that you allow the Christian symbols to kind of free associate in your brain, that you allow a piece of bread to take on more symbol. How do you let a symbol get energy in your life, right? So it could be just a piece of bread, but you let the bread become maybe the body, or you allow the symbol to fizzle around in your cerebral cortex so that it makes different kinds of connections. And I think that's one piece of this, why it might have power for us, is that we can embrace it like symbol rather than what they were doing is literalizing that text and saying, well, the bread is so important that you better understand it before you have it. And what we're saying is, no, the bread is more like a symbol of what's going on here. So let the symbol have some spark and fizzle to it. And I think that's a different way, more healthy way of thinking about it. Any more? Let's do one more comment and then I'll move on. All right, so here's what I told the kids is, and this matches, I think, what communion, at least some of the nuances of communion are about, is how do we then live out from this communion? And I just kind of go around the ring here. Number one is that we need to be Jesus in the world. So we need to be the Christ for one another. If you heard the little talk that the girl gave, the soil story at the first service, wow. You know, being Christ for each other matters, whatever that looks like for you. That's important. To live as one, you know, to begin to see that we are all connected. I would even say humanity is connected. I would say everything's connected, right? So I'm connected to the dog that's barking in my neighbor's yard. It's driving me crazy. I have some connection to that, to the creation, you know, to think about the unity of all and to hold that as a significant part of who I am. And it helps fight the ego's need to say, I'm better than everybody else, or special. It grounds ego in a sense of being a part of all that is. So be as one in the world. Be bread so that see your life as something that is shared with others. The other day, my neighbor, I didn't even realize this, he seems like a big business guy. He comes in, he dresses a lot better than I do. And when I'm at home, I don't know if any of you driven by my house, but I basically look like a construction worker when I'm at home. Right? I'm either working on the car, so I'm covered with grease, or I got sawdust all over my body and I'm doing something, or I'm digging in. So I look like blue collar guy. He's always dressed up. Whenever he walks out of the house. But I talked to him the other day, and it turns out that he works for some organization that's trying to help nonprofits to thrive in our time. And I'm like, really? I had no idea. And he gives all of his energy to help nonprofits make a difference in the world. And here I lived next to him for all this time, I had no idea. In some ways, that's his way of being bread for the world, right? He's trying to give his skill sets to make the world a healthier place. So be bread for the world. And then be open. As the table is open, we need to be open. We've been working on this as a congregation, and we need to work on it as individuals, right? How am I open to neighbor, whoever that neighbor is in my life? And I would push as far as to say, openness to neighbor creates new consciousness. Do you follow that? When you are open to the other, you are opening yourself up to a new way of seeing the world. And if you close to other, you're going to stay in your box. And the only way you can get out of that box is just being open to another and going, ooh, I did not see the world that way yesterday, and now I do. That's transformative. Being open has a power in and of itself. And then lastly, be hopeful. I mean, be future, have your eyes set ahead. You remember Pastor Arden used to say that he thought that nothing was worthy of his time that he could accomplish in his own lifetime. So that he wasn't going to put any energy in anything that he could accomplish in his lifetime. That wasn't worth his energy. He wanted to work on something that would never get achieved in his own lifetime. I mean, that's a pretty good goal, right? Of course, you know, you got to do some of the small living alongside of the big living. Right? And then finally, just some helpful tools about how to practice communion that might help you when you do commune. And so this is what I encourage kids to do, is as they're coming to communion and during the service, and I try to do this too, try to hold what you understand to be the love of Jesus, whatever that looks like for you, try to get that thing to fit inside of your heart. So that don't think about, well, what am I capable of doing? Try to think about what did I see Jesus, the capacity of Jesus' love, and can I get that inside me somehow? Can I let that love be at the heart of who I am? And I think that helps open you up to the power of bread and wine. The second one is when they come forward, they have their hands open, and I think that too can be a symbol for being open, period. So when you come for communion, you know, literally letting your body be a symbol for you that as you open your hands, you know, to think, can I live with these hands open like this all the time? Just look at your hands and let them be like a mystical receptacle for God's love, and that they reflect the openness of this gift. So that's another, I think, great way to kind of get your soul into the experience. And then as you are communing, imagine everybody around you, like Bud was saying, as your big family. That Eva is my sister, you know, and that Emily is my sister, and Bud is my brother, and then beyond this, all those people doing this all over the world are bound to me. I'm in this big family, to imagine that as you're communing. And the other one is kind of letting go of all that hurts. I think one of the experiential pieces of this is that God, if you will, in this mysterious sacrament or sacred moment, is trying to let you slough off that which is dragging you down and enter into something grander. So let go of some stuff when you come up to communion. You know, leave it for the next person to trip over as you walk down the walkway. You know, whatever happens to be, whatever baggage it is behind you, go. You know, I'm obsessed with my bank account isn't thriving. You know, we'll just let it go today and see what it's like to live beyond that. Let stuff go when you come up, and then I challenge them to also kind of let go of their big self, the ego that gets in the way, and just imagine yourself as part of something bigger, not just you. And then finally, we in our culture especially just have a heck of a time. Holly Johnson did a great job of reflecting this when she came back from Haiti. Did you guys hear her sermon? She comes back from Haiti and then she goes to Walmart, I think it was, and she's like, this is big stuff in here. And big stuff is killing us, and we don't even know it. And there's some truth to that, right? We've just immersed ourselves in letting stuff get so big that it's a prison, and we don't even see it. And our assumption that people who don't have big stuff are dying, and yet we're killing ourselves with big stuff. So something weird's going on in our culture. We've just gotten ourselves into this corner. So communion allows you time to say, look, maybe it's not about the big stuff. Maybe it's just about the ability of bread that's shared, you know, collectively. Maybe it's about just cup or binding our destinies together. Can I just hold on to that and let my big stuff slip into the background? So when you walk up from communion, I want to see a trail of things behind you. You know, hurts, your big self, your big stuff. It's all behind you, and you're at least once a week trying to embrace something that's other, something beautifully other. All right? That's the end of this presentation.
Well done.
Unless you have, we got maybe a minute or two, so if you have some thoughts that came up for you or reflections that you want to share. Was it helpful to get kind of a...
Great reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, for those of us who do this every week,
Yes.
we can forget. I think, as well. All right, everybody, thank you for coming. Next week we're doing how... We're back under reconciliation stuff. We're going to look at how do we relate to all the other world religions. So how can we frame